All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving into some really fascinating stuff about supermoons. You know me.
Always up for a little cosmic adventure.
Exactly. Especially when it involves those who feel like they have this deep, spiritual connection with the cosmos.
Right. Those who feel like the cosmos is speaking directly to them.
Yes. And we're going to be looking at this idea of chosen ones and how they might experience these lunar events a bit differently. It's a unique perspective, to say the least.
It really is. And I'm curious to see what insights we can uncover.
Me too. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's do a super quick recap for anyone who might be new to this whole supermoon thing. What is it again? What makes it so special?
Okay, so basically, a supermoon happens when a full moon occurs at the same time that the moon is at its closest point to Earth in its orbit. So it's
Yeah.
like this cosmic coincidence.
Ah, okay. So it's not just about the moon looking a little bigger and brighter.
Right. It's not just a visual thing. You see, this proximity is thought to amplify the moon's influence on Earth, and not just in terms of gravity, but energetically as well. Oh, I see. Like that whole supersized tide thing?
Exactly. Imagine that pull on the tides, but instead of water, it's our emotions and energy being amplified.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's talk about the supermoon energy then. How it might impact those who consider themselves a little more spiritually in tune.
Right, because this perspective claims that people who are on a conscious spiritual path might feel this energy more intensely.
More intensely. How so?
Well, they talk about things like feeling overwhelmed by other people's emotions, like they're suddenly picking up on everyone's vibes around them.
Whoa, that's intense. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I mean, personally, I can't say I have, but it's fascinating to consider how these celestial events might interact with our own energy fields.
Right, totally. And it's not just about the emotional stuff either. This perspective also highlights the physical sensations that might come with this amplified energy.
Yeah, like pressure in the chest or head, things like that.
Almost like our physical body is trying to process this energy surge, like receiving an energetic upgrade or something. That's an interesting way to put it. And speaking of heightened experiences, there's also the talk about our senses being amplified during a supermoon.
Like colors seeming more vivid, sounds louder.
Even a heightened sense of touch.
It's like the supermoon is turning up the dial on our senses, making us notice what we usually just filter out.
It makes you wonder if there's more to our senses than we realize, right? Like, what if these heightened experiences, as they describe them, are really us tapping into something beyond our normal perception?
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. They suggest that supermoons can also intensify our intuition, even to the point of sensing other people's true intentions or having premonitions.
It's definitely venturing into uncharted territory from a scientific standpoint. But then again, intuition itself is something that science is still trying to fully grasp.
That's true. So maybe instead of predicting the future, it's more about picking up on those subtle cues and energies that we normally miss.
Right, like we're subconsciously tuning into a deeper level of awareness.
And they also mentioned vivid dreams and visions, which makes sense considering how many cultures view dreams as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind.
It's like all these different layers of ourselves are being activated and amplified during a supermoon.
That's pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah.
But honestly, all this talk about heightened emotions, physical sensations, and sensing everyone's energy sounds exhausting.
It does, doesn't it? Well, the source actually mentions that during a supermoon, individuals who resonate with these experiences might feel a strong urge to isolate themselves.
Really. Like they need to retreat and recharge.
Exactly. It emphasizes the significance of self-awareness and honoring your energy needs, especially during these potentially overwhelming times.
So it's not just about the amplified energy, but also about how we manage and protect ourselves during these periods.
And it's interesting how this need for solitude seems to coincide with a potential surge in intuition, right?
So it's not just about hiding away from the world, but maybe using that quiet time to tap into that heightened intuition and really listen to what's coming up.
Exactly. It's like that stillness allows for a deeper connection to emerge. And speaking of deeper connections, the source suggests that this heightened intuition during a supermoon can also make us more sensitive to negative energy as well.
Okay, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows then.
Not exactly. It's more like heightened sensitivity across the board.
Hmm.
So just as you might feel more connected to positive energies, you might also find yourself picking up on negativity more intensely.
Right. They even mentioned feeling physically uncomfortable around certain people,
Yeah.
almost like it manifests as headaches or nausea.
And it's important to remember we're not suggesting to disregard any physical discomfort. If you're experiencing something like that, it's always essential to consult with a medical professional.
Of course.
Of course. But this perspective suggests that those who are more energetically sensitive might feel a drain after being around certain people. as if their energy is being sapped.
Oh, so it's like the idea of an empath, someone who's super tuned into the emotions and energies of those around them.
Yeah.
And this sensitivity might be even more pronounced during a supermoon.
Precisely. And they suggest that people who resonate with this idea of being energetically sensitive might benefit from being extra mindful of their energy boundaries, especially during a supermoon. They even recommend things like using crystals or energy cleansing techniques.
Oh, like creating visualizations for energetic protection.
Exactly. It's all about creating that energetic boundary, that sense of personal space, even if it's not visible.
It's like creating a personal sanctuary, especially when those energies are amplified. But all of this sensitivity and awareness, even the negative stuff, it's not just about us, right? The source material also talks about supermoons intensifying a sense of responsibility toward others, particularly for those who identify with the chosen one idea.
Yes,
There's-
exactly. It's like this concept of heightened sensitivity being tied to a sense of purpose.
So it's not just about experiencing things more intensely, but using that sensitivity to guide and support others.
The source talks about feeling a pull to offer advice to be a source of stability for those who might be struggling with the emotional roller coaster of the supermoon.
Right. And it's not just about one-on-one interactions either. They also mention feeling compelled to lead rituals or group meditations, especially during a supermoon. It's like this amplified energy draws people together.
It's fascinating how these themes of sensitivity and purpose seem to intertwine. This idea of stepping into a leadership role almost as if they're meant to guide others through these energetically charged times.
Right. It's like they become a calming presence in the midst of all the supermoon intensity. But let's be real, all of this, the heightened empathy, the intuitive insights, the urge to support others, it sounds like a recipe for burnout.
Absolutely. And thankfully, the source material acknowledges this. They emphasize that while this sense of responsibility is powerful, it's crucial to prioritize self-care and establish healthy boundaries.
So it's a balancing act, offering support while also protecting your own energy.
Exactly. They highlight practices like meditation, connecting with nature, and most importantly, learning to say no when needed to conserve energy.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Pers-
I love that. So to sum it up, supermoons might amplify our sense of responsibility toward others, especially for those who feel a deeper spiritual calling. But it's vital to balance that with self-care and setting boundaries to avoid burning out.
Perfectly put. It's about recognizing that taking care of your own well-being enables you to show up for others in a healthier, more sustainable way.
Now, before we get into specific practices, I want to zoom out for a moment. We've been diving deep into some specific claims, particularly around this concept of chosen ones. But what are some broader takeaways here for anyone listening, regardless of how they connect with these ideas?
I think the core message revolves around the power of observation. Regardless of whether we feel deeply connected to the supermoon or identify as someone on a particular spiritual path, paying attention to our energy levels, emotions, and intuition during these lunar events can be incredibly revealing.
It's like tuning into our internal landscape and noticing if any recurring patterns or themes emerge.
Absolutely. It allows us to understand our own rhythms and cycles in a more profound way. And who knows, we might uncover aspects of ourselves that we weren't even aware of.
That's fascinating. It's like the supermoon acts as a catalyst for self-discovery, prompting us to look a little deeper.
The source also suggests that supermoons might unveil hidden truths or bring unresolved issues to the surface.
Ooh, that's interesting. Almost like these amplified energies act as a cosmic mirror, reflecting what we might be overlooking.
It can be uncomfortable facing those shadow aspects, but it's an opportunity for growth and healing. We can address something if we aren't willing to acknowledge it first, right?
So it's about finding the courage to confront those uncomfortable truths.
Yes, and to view those challenges as stepping stones on our path of personal evolution.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects back to anyone, regardless of their spiritual beliefs. So to recap, we're talking about self-observation, understanding our internal rhythms, and using the supermoon as a potential catalyst for growth.
Precisely. It's about approaching these experiences with a sense of agency and curiosity, recognizing that we have a choice in how we respond.
Now, speaking of responding, the source dives into how those who identify as chosen ones might experience a surge in their connection to spirituality during a supermoon. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, while the language of chosen ones might not resonate with everyone, the underlying message about a potential for spiritual growth during this time is something many can connect with. Everyone's spiritual journey is unique.
So regardless of whether someone feels chosen or not, they can still utilize this time for introspection and exploration.
Absolutely. It's about approaching these experiences with an open mind and a willingness to dive a little deeper into themselves.
The source gets pretty specific about the type of spiritual work that might call to people during a supermoon. Leading rituals, energy work, offering guidance. It's a lot.
It's almost as if they're stepping into a more active role as facilitators of their own spiritual growth and potentially that of others.
Right. They even mentioned experiencing a deeper sense of purpose during these times.
Which speaks to the potential for profound spiritual experiences and a deepening connection to something greater than ourselves. But let's bring it back down to earth for a moment and talk about practical steps.
I like where you're going with this.
hmm
Say someone's feeling called to explore their spiritual side during a supermoon, chosen one or not. What are some tangible things they can do? So we've established that supermoons might be like this potent time for spiritual exploration, but what does that actually look like practically? Where can someone even begin?
You know, it's funny you say that because one of the simplest yet most powerful practices, and this is often recommended during any lunar phase, is to simply spend time in nature.
We really? Just go outside. That's it.
It might sound surprisingly straightforward, I
Yeah.
know, but being in nature allows us to kind of disconnect from our usual routines and really tune into the natural world around us.
Right, like hitting the reset button on our senses.
Exactly. And during a supermoon, when that lunar energy is thought to be amplified, that connection with nature might feel even more profound.
So no need to like gather herbs into the moonlight or anything.
Well, there's no need to overcomplicate things. A simple walk in the park, feeling the grass beneath your feet, gazing at the moon. These can be incredibly grounding and insightful practices.
Okay, that feels doable.
Yeah.
What about rituals? I know the source mentioned those. Are we talking full-on ceremonies here?
Well, rituals can be a really beautiful way to connect with the energy of a supermoon, and they can be as simple or elaborate as you feel comfortable with.
For someone who's new to this whole thing, where's a good place to start?
Well, setting an intention is always a powerful first step. Take some time to reflect on what you're feeling, what you want to invite into your life, or maybe what you're ready to release. Writing it down can be helpful too.
So it's like giving your energy a clear direction,
Mm.
especially with all the supermoon amplification happening.
Precisely. And remember, it's not about performing the right ritual, it's about approaching it with a sense of intention and openness.
I like that. We've covered connecting with nature, setting intentions, and even dipping our toes into rituals. What about meditation? It seems like that would fit right in with all of this.
Absolutely. Meditation, especially guided meditations that focus on lunar energy or intuition, can be a wonderful way to deepen your connection to these themes during a supermoon.
And there are tons of guided meditations available online, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can find one for just about anything these days. The key is to find one that resonates with you and your intentions.
I love how many options there are for tapping into this energy. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, is it?
Not at all. It's about finding what works best for you on your own unique journey.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. It's amazing how much there is to explore with supermoons and spirituality. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about discernment. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of these ideas. But how can our listeners approach this information with a healthy dose of skepticism while still being open to the possibilities?
That's such a crucial point. It's about finding that balance between curiosity and critical thinking. It's okay to be both intrigued and discerning at the same time.
So not taking everything at face value, but also not dismissing things outright.
Exactly. Trust your intuition. If something resonates deeply with you, explore it further. If something feels off, it's perfectly fine to let it go.
It's like we're creating our own cosmic toolkit, taking what serves us and leaving what doesn't.
I love that analogy. It reminds us that we have the power to choose what we engage with.
Absolutely. And ultimately, whether or not we fully embrace every idea about supermoons or chosen ones, we're all on a journey of self-discovery. And maybe exploring these concepts, even the ones that seem a little out there, can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. The next time a supermoon rolls around, I'll be grabbing a blanket, heading outside, and seeing what unfolds. Who knows, maybe I'll find myself drawn to a new meditation practice, or maybe inspired to create a little moonlit ritual of my own. Thanks for joining us on this illuminating exploration, everyone. Until next time, keep looking up and keep exploring those fascinating corners of yourself.